insight that this is potentially a model that we can replicate with other big projects like the zoo and other things. I applaud John Dobson and his team of cohorts that have put their hand up, and I thank you, John, for your patience as we navigate this today across political issues and things and create a robust process. I know what it's like to be in business and you want to get stuff done and cut through the red tape, but I think through this process and through my amendment, we actually land on a really robust and comprehensive outcome that will enable you to deliver on this and with partnership, deliver on this exciting project. This has been a conversation today about process, and I also acknowledge Councillor McPherson and Bunting, who got this on the table at the 10-year plan, and really bring to life the plan of Peter Sergel and his vision, and really bring execution to it, which is fantastic. I am sure that Councillor O'Leary would bring absolute passion to the role, and I'd encourage her to stay close to the issue because there's still no reason why she can't be part of that PGG. As John said, it's about skill set, and passion is as much a skill as anything else, and she'll bring lots of other council experience and institutional knowledge to the table. This is essentially a $25 million project that we're endorsing today, and it's important that we get it right. The other elements to the amendment which we've got on there are just about checks and balances for people that we get on the trust, not to slow down and make it more bureaucratic, but just to ensure that there's no red flags and that no one can bring this process into disrepute. That's the only reason why I want those filters put in there. As to the conversation around representation, I take John's point that it's about skill set, not representation, and he's pointed out he is also Friends of the Garden, and as many representatives around this table, we are also representatives of many organisations, many ethnicities, and many groups. So I look forward to support in that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahangai Te Pora.
Yes, kia ora, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I'm going to speak in support of the amendment. It's important that we ensure that we have the right skill set around the table, but also equally that the Council is confident that those that we've put forward into these roles deliver results on fundraising and project delivery. So absolutely, I agree that it's a model going forward. So it's important that we get the process right and that we do the right things at the front end. It's become very clear to me that the actual purpose of the PGG is to bring together people with a set of skills that that we can utilise to, number one, raise funds, and two, follow through on and monitor project delivery on there. It was, in my view, at the beginning of going through the papers, and certainly at the going through the question period, it would have been appropriate in my role as Māngai Māori to advocate for a specific iwi seat on there. However, I'm now clear about what this group absolutely needs, and that is the right skill sets. I'm confident that in the amendment that we will put in the right people with the right skills, and so in that I consider that we will also co-opt the right people with the necessary skills and also the necessary influence to gain the large amount of funding that we need. I'm heartened to hear that the PGF was given a heads up on the overall intent for the gardens, and note there that a significant part of the provincial growth fund is how we interact with mana whenua and the Māori input into that. So also note all of those relationships that the PGG and the trust itself has gone out to get. I always allude to, I have certainly in the last meeting alluded to the value and the partnership that iwi, that mana whenua, that mātawa waka Māori bring to any sort of funding situation, and I really encourage the PGG and the council to take that up and to consider the partnerships that we can together have. Kia ora.
Thank you, Te Pora. Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. When I was sitting, I think, about this seat during the annual the LTP submissions, and John Dobson was sitting on that seat there where Ryan is now, talking about his idea about what would be a good way to move all of the gardens forward, not just some of them, as we had in our draft plan. Maybe unusually, I actually listened to something new that I hadn't heard before particularly, and thought that's actually a good idea. So I'm really pleased we've got to this stage where councillors backed that good idea, and we're starting to put some flesh around it now, and we can see a way forward to get all of those gardens in the 10 years, because that was an important move, I thought. The most important thing, in fact, is that we enact the decision that we made in the LTP. The motion that we passed there is there on page 46. It isn't actually who's on or who's not on the trust. And I think the Chair's motion confuses the membership with the process. I think the process of getting there is important. We've had it outlined by several people in several different ways that what we need is the right skill mix there. But what the Chair's motion does is jump the gun to the end result before we've even agreed on the process. And that is my problem with the Chair's resolution. I have no problems if at the end of the process it ends up with Councillor Angela O'Leary on there. I think she would do a good job. I have no idea whether she would compared with other people on there or not. That, to me, is not the issue today and shouldn't have been the issue. I think it confuses things, and I think, to be honest, the staff report headed us a bit in that direction as well. I'd much rather agree on the general plan for moving forward, what structure we're going to use, and then fill the gaps in afterwards, rather than fill the gaps in before we've got to the structure, as is happening now. We need, and I think it's been clearly explained, we understand why, a high-powered, well-connected group of community members who can help drive this forward, especially in the fundraising sense and keeping that vision front of mind. That's what we need out of this. We don't need a series of representatives of relatively small parts of the equation all having their say. That is not necessarily going to deliver us the right skill set. Now, most of the people around this table have agreed that we don't want, that on a CCO board that we set up, we don't particularly want councillors because it's not a political issue. We need the right skill set for that particular organisation that we've set up. And it's just the same here. But suddenly, we all want to appoint 1 or 2 or 3 councillors to it. I honestly don't think, I think that's the wrong way to go, and I think it's inconsistent with what we've done in several other spheres. We had our political debate at the LTP. We had an outcome. Now we're trying to make sure that we keep consistent with that LTP decision, not try and water it down, not put people on there because we think they'll do a good job before we've decided what the process is. So let's get the process right. Let's add the people in as we need after we've had a look at the right mix, and then we'll actually start getting the gardens built with a bit of luck. All of them.
Thank you. I'll just write notes for right reply. Councillor Gallagher.
I think the critical point is, if we turn to page 46, 7, this is the background at the LTP meeting, 7A2, to complete the role of a group would be to complete the Hamilton Gardens based on the 2017 Peter Circle strategic proposal, to include a funding plan that will enable completion of the gardens development, incorporating the extra gardens proposed in the draft LTP, with a total budget expected to be in the order of 25 to 30 million, including a Hamilton Council contribution of 10 million. So that basically is a group that we're going to task to find potentially up to 20 million. I will be supporting the amendment principally because I think the issue is, this is first of all establishing the process, and this is a group of, ultimately the people we appoint as a group, not of delegates, but of individuals with a set of skills. When this group, if the amendment is successful, when this group comes back with their recommendations, I personally will be looking for, I still think there's a role for an elected councillor on that group. I'll be fully supporting Councillor O'Leary in the sense of her skill set. As I have mentioned, however, I certainly want to fine-tune. I think we have a role, obviously, if it's part of the council structure, the mayor of the day. It can be Julie, it can be Andrew, it can be anybody, but the mayor of the day who leads the LTP, has executive mayoral powers, who goes to Wellington regularly, definitely needs an appropriate close link into that particular trust. When the recommendations come back, I will certainly be wanting to find out, in terms of the personnel, how the linkage and liaison with mana whenua was going to be handled. I think that's absolutely crucial and critical, and that I suspect you will zero in on an appropriate individual who may bring those skills to the table, just as you'll zero in on an individual who will have good relationships to stakeholders, including the Friends of the Gardens and other groups, okay? I think the critical thing to remember that this ultimately will be an advisory panel to council of individuals with a very important set of skill sets. I do think, as I said at the beginning, that it's important we have the appropriate linkage to the elected wing, hence I'd be supporting a council appointment. I do think, obviously, the role of the Mayor of the Day is also crucial as a support person for this group, because ultimately any proposal in the end we have to tick off. But let us not underestimate the skill set required to go out and raise the money and to share the vision around the country and the region. That is going to be some individuals with an incredible range of skills. Today's debate totally reinforces for me personally why we want a group that is off to one side, and why, when you leave it sometimes to full council under the glare of web streaming to debate these things, I don't think any of our debate today has encouraged any of our funders. And I hope Minister Shane Jones and the Provincial Growth Fund people are not watching this live stream today, because what an advertisement for us in terms of putting a proposal. And that's why on Thursday, when we're going to be talking about a river plan task force, that's exactly why you take this kind of offline into another room with the people with a set of skills to put this together. You as a council get to tick it off in the end anyway. What I do not lose sight of, in spite of my frustrations with how this debate and discussion has evolved today, and it frankly wouldn't surprise me if Mr Dobson and others just ran away after witnessing us earlier on, but that's life. He's staying, thank goodness, and others are staying. Because why we all stay in this process is this is an incredibly exciting, visionary journey, which is a huge asset to our region and to our council. And that's why we want to get, that is why it is so important that we get this right, so that we can actually, if you like, complete this wonderful visionary journey that was started many, many years ago. I thank from the bottom of my heart for the volunteer community members, including the Mr Dobsons and the Friends of the Gardens and the other members of the Trust who give up their time as free volunteers. No pecuniary reward, anything like that. We are so indebted to them, and it is so important that we get this particular structure right to finish the job.
Thank you. Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I appreciated the staff came to some of, well, actually I think smaller groups of all elected members, and in my group there was myself, the Chair and the Deputy Mayor, and gave us a brief on the report and the outcomes that we would possibly want to seek today. Now, I expressed an interest in that, in being placed on the PGG, because of the experience that I've had with the first development of the gardens. And following the same process that other elected members have expressed when they are interested in an issue, passionate about an issue, and then get appointed through reports and through chairs' reports and through motions up front onto task force groups. So I was following that process. The Deputy Mayor and the Chair, who were at that meeting with me with staff, recognised and expressed support to put my name forward. So we were all just following the process that we have done this term. So the Chair said she would put my name forward, and that was the extent of that discussion. So I am disappointed, but sadly not surprised with the level of politics that have entered the debate today. I do suspect for some that it is because my name is up there. That is my opinion. My name being put forward for a role that I have proven over 11 years, the ability to understand the difference between delivering good outcomes for the city and the people of our city and personal politics. So my support is for the motion, which is the same model of a PGG that the General Manager quite rightly points out that we have had in the past that was extremely successful. And that is the process that the Chair has put forward. That is the right process, and that is the proven process. And for me, it is necessary that a representative of the Friends of the Gardens is on this group.
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. Councillor Henry.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Well, I won't mention ageism, sexism, blue-eyedism, racism today. And that's why I support the motion, because I believe we followed the right process. And just like Councillor O'Leary said, we've had that process in the past. Somebody said they're passionate about a certain topic and put it forward, and were elected on or promoted on to a certain seat. So why is that any different? So I believe that Councillor O'Leary is the right person for this place and to be on this project governance group. And because she supported and championed the gardens for many years, I believe we need someone with passion on this panel. And I also know she has got the right skill sets to be on that panel. I also believe we need to have one person from the Friends of the Gardens on that project. The Friends of the Gardens have done incredible work, and I do not believe without them the gardens would be where they're at today. So yes, although a lot in the background, they do incredible work in the background. Yes, it's not the high profile that we've got in the front of the trust where the high profile people are sitting. They do incredible work in the background, and they can make a huge input into this project. So that's why I'm totally supporting the motion, and we need. Yes, we need the right people for the right skill set, but sometimes we overlook what's actually important and who is important, and having another panel of people deciding later on who is right or wrong for that group. Why not decide it now? Why not today? And why not put the right people in today? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Tuman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This has been a little bit embarrassing this morning, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't really think it's shown this council in a very good light. We have a group of volunteers here who are wanting to get on with the development of the gardens. Why, for heaven's sake, would we not receive this gift horse with open arms? I can't understand that. It appears to me that the issue is who the elected member is on the PGG. This is what it appears to be. The Chair's motion is for Councillor O'Leary, who's been the nominated councillor. My observations of Councillor O'Leary over the last 5 years is that basically she led the nation, as far as I'm concerned, in the synthetic substances, where every other council followed on from what her lead was. Likewise with the People's Project, City Safety Plan, River Plan, and many other projects. as far as being our representative on the PGG, it was only this morning that I noticed that she came into the councillor's tea room there with a bag of freshly grown garden peas from her own garden. Now, if anybody can actually get a bag of garden peas at this time of the year, I think she must be a fantastic gardener. Look, we could go on with this forever and a day, but let's get on and move this thing forward. And as a result of that, I will be supporting the Chair's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Casson.
Thank you, Chair. I heard John sitting there before talking to us and saying he didn't want any kind of political interference in this too much. He just wanted to get on with the job and get it done. But I think today has shown that's exactly what he's got, a lot of interference. On Sunday, I volunteered as a corporate clown at the Santa Parade. And I'm telling you what, everybody in here needs to wear a funny wig today because that was absolutely ridiculous this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Not terribly leading as to where you're going, but thank you, Councillor Meking. Apologies, Meking.
I just want to remind members of where this started, and it was started at the 10-year plan, in the 10-year plan process, and the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust proposal, which was put up by Dave McPherson and seconded, I think from memory, by Mark Bunting, where they were basically charged with fundraising going forward for these big projects to take the gardens forward even faster than the money that our council had put up. Now, I just want to remind members at that stage that, from my memory, the Friends were opposed to that happening, and there are members around this table who are very speaking quite strongly for the motion, who are also opposed to that at the time. And now we had what I consider to be almost a hijacked staff recommendation to then re-empower the position again to bring in extra people on top of what had been recommended, and that those people were specifically from a certain, from their group, the Friends of the Gardens. Now, the Friends of the Gardens are going to have a voice, and John Dobson's always made that clear, that there would be a Friends of the Gardens person on the PGG, or that's my understanding of where it was.
No. Point of order, Meking. He's shaking his head, so we do need that just corrected. Point of order, you're incorrect. John is shaking his head at that. Do you want to, well, do you agree with that statement, or?
It's not correct. We've always said the Friends need to be consulted. We're saying they don't need to be represented. No one needs to be represented.
Okay, thank you.
So that reinforces the position that the point I'm trying to make is that you've got the group who's been charged with raising $25 million, who are going to consult back with that group. But this today, this motion was trying to force, if you like, an extra member onto that group through a resolution of this council. When John Dobson had, my understanding was John had made it quite clear that they didn't even necessarily need a member of this council on the PGG. And I'm pleased to see that this amendment doesn't necessarily mean that a member of this council will get on the PGG. The way it's worded is that the people with the right skill sets make up that group of 6 people, and the only person who's guaranteed to be on there is the general manager, and from there it may well be that there is nobody around this table who's on there, and we become one of the parties that gets consulted with, because it is critically important that the 5 other people who are selected are the best people with a broad range of different skills in different areas to be on this group. So I just want to make it clear that there is no guarantee that one of us is going to make it through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. My right of reply. Maybe this does appear to have got more complex than it needed to today, and that's surprising because I set out to make 3 key points. I didn't define who the member of the Friends of the Gardens would be. I just said, and the process would take care of that. I said that there needed to be a representation or a appointment of the Friends of the Gardens. I've heard someone in their debate say that we needed high-powered, well-connected members to be on this board, as if there weren't any of those in the Friends of the Gardens, and I find that a little bit disrespectful, because I know there's an immense array of experience, skills in there. But I didn't seek to tell you who.
That made the statement, and what I said was we needed high-powered, well-connected community members. I didn't refer to the Friends of the Gardens one way or another, or any other group.
Fine, I'll withdraw that. I took the assumption that you felt they might not be one of those high-powered, well-connected groups. So that's fine, I'll withdraw that comment. But I didn't define who it would be. However, I did populate the space provided in the staff recommendation with Councillor O'Leary's name. And I was quite transparent that I was going to do that. You've heard from Angela today, and Martin could confirm that that's exactly how that occurred, through an expression of interest. I may well lose this today, but the 3 points I wanted to make were that do not forget that the City Council are the primary governors over this public asset. They are, and they should be, as they are over all other public assets. Secondly, I chose to support someone who I do believe has the correct skills and experience to do the job well. And thirdly, I support the view of a number of people here that the Friends of the Gardens can only add value rather than weaken the proposition. It was only yesterday that Mayor King told me he thought only the Mayor should be on it. There was no need for another elected member, and that the role was to get out of the way of the Trust and let them get on to do what they've got to do. Down the line of, let's get rid of any political interference. That was the first time that you had articulated that to me yesterday. Mm-hmm. Why?
I made it very clear that there'd be a conduit back to report back to council.
Yes.
This was not about elected members getting out of the way. This was about one elected members reporting back to council.
Yes, what you did say was that it should be you. You could report back to council, and primarily we should be letting them get on with what they want to do. That's, I think, what you said. However, that was only became clear to me yesterday. So this was never a this person or that person, this group or that group. It was all about getting as much inclusivity as possible, about strengthening the group. And I've got no issue with Mayor Andrew being involved in this whatsoever as the head of this organisation, should he have the time to do so. But I go back to the point that I was within my rights to populate the space provided with the 2 exits that the staff provided in the staff recommendation with someone who I felt I could really get behind, and that's what I've done. So you're looking at, and look, I also respect highly the Trust and all they've done. I just mention, I don't think I need to add more about Angela's skills, the fact that she's on the IOD and all of those kind of things, and all the projects that Leo quite properly articulated. What I would say, though, a point that was made in debate that I do support, and wasn't one that I'd pushed for strongly, but I very much agree with, that the view that a co-option to or an appointment of an iwi seat is absolutely valid and appropriate, and that way we can work together with significant funding partners to not only bring Māori values and cultural considerations across the gardens, but also potentially funding. So thank you for raising that, Te Pora, because in the other part of my debate I had overlooked that, so I appreciate that. So look, you know, this may not fly, but I hope even if it doesn't, what I have made quite clear is who the best people are for it, my personal belief that the Friends of the Gardens will strengthen it, and my view that because it's a public park, we need to keep reasonably close to this as it progresses without hampering the work of the advisory group. And so now we'll go to the vote on the amendment first, isn't it? Yes, I said that, on the amendment.
The amendment is carried, 7 for, 6 against.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, so that becomes the motion and we vote for that. Thank you. Can we reset? Huh? Voted for. Oh. Can we reset that again? Sorry. Oh no, it's all right. Doesn't matter.
The amendment as a substantive motion is declared carried, 10 for, 3 against.
Yes. Pardon? Okay, so now what is it you're proposing before we break for lunch?
We now are required to nominate the elected member to work with the mayor and the panel to select to bring the recommendations. That's if we just
No, I don't think we do have to do it now. There's an issue with that. You do? You think we do?
well,
The trouble with the elected member is that personal and cannot be the person who might be.
well,
voted
just
on.
can you hear me out first through the chair? This is all this is at the moment. After all of this, you'll be pleased to know it is merely a recommendation to full council. So the you know, it all carries on at the full council. I'd suggest that chair of CNS be with the mayor, be on the appointment panel. So basically, I have a view that I think we should ultimately have an elected member on the PGG, but it'll be logical you
so
do it.
So chair of community services and the mayor will sit with the trust and will.
Okay.
Thank you. Got that? All in favour, say aye. It's just nominating Mayor Andrew and myself in our, just to go through that next step of the process. Okay, all in favour, opposed, carried. We're going to take lunch. I know that Mayor Andrew's got a speaking engagement. Mayor Andrew, you've got a speaking engagement, you'll be back at 1? Is that correct? Oh,